Two men climbed a remote hill outside Rio de Janeiro. They carried no food, no water, no weapons, only a notebook, two homemade lead masks, and a written set of instructions. Hours later, they were dead. No signs of violence, no signs of a struggle, and no clear cause of death. The police would later admit something deeply unsettling. They didn't understand what killed them, but they believed the men were waiting for something that never arrived. On August 17, 1966, two Brazilian electronics technicians left their homes and told their families they were going out to buy supplies. They never came back. Their bodies were discovered days later on a hill known as Morro do Vintém, a remote, wind-swept location overlooking the city of Niterói. It was an unusual place to die. Not hidden, not isolated enough to avoid attention, but not somewhere people casually visited either. When police reached the bodies, one detail immediately stood out. The men were lying side by side, perfectly still, fully dressed, and covering their eyes were crude masks made of lead. They weren't wearing them loosely. They were positioned deliberately, carefully cut, purpose-built, as if the men believed the masks were protecting them from something they expected to see. The bodies showed no external injuries, no bruises, no defensive wounds, no signs of a fall. Their watches had stopped at the same time. Around them, police found a bottle of water, two towels, a raincoat, and a small notebook. The notebook contained only a few handwritten lines, but those lines would become one of the most disturbing clues in forensic history. The final entry read, 1630, be at the agreed place. 1830, ingest capsules. After effect, protect metals. Wait for signal. Protect metals. Wait for signal. Police had no idea what that meant. And to this day, neither does anyone else. But what makes this case truly terrifying isn't what was found on that hill. It's what was missing. There was no food, no alcohol, no drugs found at the scene. Toxicology reports later showed no identifiable poison in their systems. Yet both men were undeniably dead, which leads to a question that has haunted investigators for decades. If they weren't murdered, and they didn't poison themselves, what exactly were they waiting for? If you think this story is strange now, you haven't heard why these men went to that hill in the first place.
Before they ever climbed that hill, the two men had already crossed a line most people never do. They weren't thrill seekers. They weren't criminals. They weren't known to police. They were electronics technicians. Quiet, methodical, intelligent. Men who believed deeply in systems, signals, and cause and effect. And for months before their deaths, they had been preparing for something they believed was real. Something they believed was coming. Friends and family later described a strange change in both men. They became secretive, withdrawn, fixated. They spoke less about work and more about ideas that didn't quite make sense. Energy, radiation, messages hidden in frequencies no one else could hear. They weren't rambling. They were precise, as if repeating instructions they had memorized. One family member remembered a conversation that stood out long after the men were gone. One of them said there were things in the sky that didn't belong there. That human eyes weren't designed to see certain phenomena safely. That exposure could be fatal. But protection was possible, if you knew how. That belief is where the lead masks come in. The men didn't buy them. They didn't steal them. They made them. Crude sheets of lead, roughly cut, shaped only to cover the eyes. Not the face. Not the head, just the eyes, as if sight itself was the danger. This wasn't the first time they had attempted something like this. Police later uncovered evidence of an earlier experiment. Weeks before their deaths, one of the men had traveled alone to another remote area. He carried similar materials, similar notes. That attempt failed. He returned shaken, quiet, but convinced they were close. Close to what no one knows. When police searched their homes, they found more unsettling clues. Books about spiritual communication, articles about radiation exposure, notes referencing contact and signals, not written like fantasies, written like plans. The notebook found on the hill wasn't a diary. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't reflective. It was procedural. Times, actions, outcomes. Like a checklist for an experiment that had to be performed exactly right. And at the end of that checklist, wait for signal. That single phrase terrified investigators because it implied expectation. Not suicide. Not despair. Waiting. Waiting for something external. Something they believed would arrive at a specific moment. Toxicology reports would later complicate everything. The capsules mentioned in the note were never identified. No known poison. No drugs. No chemicals. Nothing that explained death. Which means one of two things must be true. Either the capsules were something science still can't identify, or the capsules weren't what killed them at all. Police quietly consulted experts. Doctors. Chemists. Engineers. No one could explain it. There were no burns. No trauma. No signs of radiation sickness. Just two men dead, exactly where and when their notes said they would be. And then there was the timing. Their watches stopped at the same moment. Not broken. Stopped. As if time itself paused for them on that hill. The more investigators looked into their beliefs, the more uncomfortable the case became. Because nothing suggested delusion. Nothing suggested panic. Everything suggested certainty. The kind of certainty that comes from believing you know what's about to happen. And if that's true, then the most horrifying possibility is that the men died waiting for something that never came. It's that they believed something was supposed to come. And whatever it was, did. When the bodies were brought down from the hill, investigators expected answers. They didn't get them. The autopsy reports were brief. Almost strangely brief. No visible trauma. No defensive wounds. No signs of a struggle. The men hadn't fallen. They hadn't been beaten. They hadn't been restrained. They had simply stopped. Doctors searched for poison. None was found. They tested for alcohol, for known narcotics, for industrial chemicals. Nothing. The capsules mentioned in the notebook were never identified. No residue was recovered. No packaging. No trace. It was as if whatever the men ingested either didn't exist in known toxicology or wasn't responsible for their deaths at all. Then came the contradictions. Officially, police suggested the men died of undetermined causes. Privately, investigators were deeply unsettled. One report quietly mentioned possible cardiac arrest, but there was no evidence of heart disease. Another theory suggested exposure. Exposure to what was never stated. No burns. No radiation markers. No environmental toxins found in the soil. Yet the lead masks remained unexplained. Why protect the eyes and nothing else? If the danger was chemical, masks made of lead would be useless. If it was radiation, the protection was incomplete. If it was light, then what kind of light required shielding the eyes, but not the skin? No expert could answer that. Even stranger was the positioning of the bodies. They weren't collapsed. They weren't contorted. They lay side by side, aligned, almost deliberate, as if they had laid down willingly, as if they expected something to happen to them, and accepted it. Police noted the lack of panic. No claw marks in the dirt. No disturbed ground. No signs they tried to stand up. That detail bothered investigators more than anything else. Because whatever happened, it happened quickly and without fear. And then there was the timeline. The notebook specified exact times. Be at the location. Ingest the capsules. Wait. Their watches stopped shortly after the final written time. Not hours later. Not days. Within the window they had planned for. Coincidence was becoming harder to argue. Authorities quietly reached out to specialists outside traditional law enforcement. Engineers, physicists, medical researchers. None could explain the combination of facts. The case didn't fit murder. It didn't fit suicide. It didn't fit accident. And it didn't fit mental illness either. The men showed no signs of confusion or instability in their daily lives. They paid bills. They worked consistently. They planned ahead. People don't abandon reality overnight. At some point during the investigation, the tone shifted. Police stopped speculating publicly. Statements became shorter. Questions went unanswered. The case wasn't aggressively pursued. It was contained, as if drawing attention to it only made things worse. One investigator would later admit something off the record. There were things in this case we didn't know how to explain. And once you admit that publicly, you lose control of the story. So the story was simplified. Two men. Strange beliefs. Tragic end. But the evidence never fully supported that version. And it still doesn't. Because the autopsy didn't explain why they died. The scene didn't explain what they were protecting themselves from. And the note didn't read like a goodbye. It read like instructions. Written by people who believed the outcome was certain. And that leaves one question that still makes this case unbearable to revisit. If the men didn't die from what they ingested, what happened to them while they were waiting? After the autopsies were completed, something changed. The investigation didn't intensify. It slowed. Questions that should have led to deeper inquiry didn't. Leads that should have been followed weren't. Instead of expanding, the case began to close in on itself. Police stopped requesting expert consultations. Public statements became vague. The language shifted from curiosity to containment. It was as if the goal was no longer to understand what happened on that hill. It was to move past it. There was no press conference explaining the contradictions. No announcement addressing the unanswered questions. No clear ruling on the cause of death. Just silence. The men's families were given no real explanation. No timeline. No certainty. They were told there was nothing more to pursue. And that was the end of it. The notebook was archived. The lead masks were stored away. The scene was cleared. No reenactments. No reconstructions. No follow-up searches of the area. The hill was left untouched. As if returning there might raise questions no one wanted to answer. Investigators later admitted, quietly, that the case had become uncomfortable. Not because it was violent, but because it didn't fit inside the boundaries of known explanations. There was no crime to prosecute, no suspect to arrest, no clear medical cause to document. And admitting that publicly would invite speculation. Speculation they couldn't control. At the time, Brazil was living under a military dictatorship. Information was tightly managed. Uncertainty was dangerous. Cases that created confusion, panic, or distrust in official explanations were discouraged. The lead masks case did all three. So it was simplified. Two men. Strange beliefs. Tragic end. A narrative neat enough to close the file. But even that explanation was never fully written down. The official conclusion remained vague. No suicide ruling. No homicide ruling. No accidental death. Just an unresolved case, quietly shelved. Years later, when journalists tried to revisit the story, they found resistance. Documents were missing. Reports were incomplete. Witnesses declined to speak. Some officials claimed records had been lost. Others said the case had never been considered important enough to preserve in detail. That answer only deepened the unease. Because cases without answers are usually pursued longer, not erased faster. And then there was the question of the men's prior activities. Their earlier experiment. Their growing obsession. Their belief in protection. None of it was formally investigated. No attempt was made to understand where their ideas came from. No effort to trace who influenced them. No interest in why they believed the timing was so precise. Those questions were left untouched. One investigator, speaking years later, offered a chilling explanation. Sometimes, he said, when you can't explain something, the safest option is to stop asking. And in this case, that's exactly what happened. The silence wasn't accidental. It was chosen. Because the longer the case remained open, the more it suggested something deeply unsettling. That two ordinary men followed instructions they believed were real, carried out a plan they trusted, and died waiting for something no one could explain. And once that possibility exists, it's hard to put it back in the box. Once the investigation fell silent, the theories began to surface. Not publicly, not officially, quietly, in fragments. Among investigators, journalists, and people who understood that some questions were never meant to be asked out loud. The first theory was the easiest to accept, that the men had been victims of shared delusion. Two friends. A belief reinforced through repetition. An experiment that went tragically wrong. But that explanation never fully held. Because shared delusion doesn't explain precision. It doesn't explain timing. It doesn't explain why both men followed the same instructions, down to the minute. And it doesn't explain why their bodies showed no signs of panic. People breaking from reality don't behave calmly at the moment of death. These men did. The second theory was more unsettling, that the men were experimenting with radiation. Brazil, at the time, had limited regulation around radioactive materials. Industrial waste was poorly monitored. Lead was commonly associated with shielding. But again, the facts didn't align. There were no burns, no radiation sickness, no contamination of the soil, and shielding only the eyes made no scientific sense. Unless the threat wasn't heat, unless it wasn't energy, unless it wasn't something physical at all. That's when investigators began whispering about light. Not sunlight, not visible light. Something else. Something intense enough to cause harm through exposure, but only if perceived directly. Something the men believed could be blocked. By lead. By darkness. By preparation. Then there was the third theory. The one that made officials visibly uncomfortable. The possibility that the men believed they were participating in contact. Not metaphorical contact. Not spiritual metaphor. Contact as in communication. Signals. Instructions. Timing. The notebook wasn't emotional. It wasn't symbolic. It was technical. As if the men believed they were following a process that had already been tested. As if this wasn't the first attempt. Investigators quietly discovered that the men had been involved in a group that believed in non-traditional communication. Signals embedded in frequencies. Messages hidden in electrical interference. Patterns invisible to most people. They believed technology could be used as a bridge, and that certain conditions had to be met for contact to occur. Specific locations, specific times, specific preparations. The hill, the capsules, the masks. But here's the detail that keeps this theory alive. The men didn't leave a farewell message. No apology. No explanation to family. No goodbye. They left instructions. People preparing for death usually leave closure behind. People expecting something to happen don't. Another theory emerged quietly among military analysts. That the men were unknowingly involved in a psychological experiment. Brazil, during that period, was a hotspot for unregulated research. Military influence was widespread. Civilian experiments were poorly documented. The men's technical backgrounds made them ideal participants. They understood circuitry. They understood signal processing. What if they were given information without understanding the source? What if they were instructed without ever meeting who instructed them? And then there was the theory no one ever put in writing. The idea that the men succeeded, not in surviving, but in experiencing something they believed was real. Something so sudden, so overwhelming, that it stopped them instantly. No fear, no struggle, just stillness. That idea terrified investigators. Because if the men didn't die from what they ingested, and they didn't die from violence, then the cause of death becomes something far more difficult to define. Something that doesn't fit inside a report. Something that can't be measured after the fact. Over time, officials learned to avoid discussing these theories. They didn't deny them. They simply stopped acknowledging them. The case became a curiosity, A footnote. A story people repeated without expecting answers. But for those who studied it closely, the lead masks case never felt finished. Because every theory points back to the same disturbing truth. The men weren't running from something. They weren't hiding. They were preparing. And preparation implies belief. Belief implies expectation. And expectation implies that whatever they were waiting for was supposed to arrive. And that leaves one final, unbearable question. If the men followed every instruction, if they were at the right place, at the right time, and they did everything they believed was necessary, then what does it mean? That they never stood up again. Most unsolved cases eventually fade. They lose urgency, they lose witnesses, they lose relevance. This one didn't. Because every time someone tried to close it, something didn't fit. The lead masks case was never officially solved, but it was never fully investigated either. It existed in a strange middle ground. Not important enough to reopen. Too disturbing to explain. A case suspended in silence. Years after the bodies were found, journalists returned to Rio de Janeiro. They expected the fear to be gone. It was. Locals avoided the hill. Taxi drivers refused to stop nearby. Older residents changed the subject when the case was mentioned. Some said nothing happened there. Others said too much did. Former investigators were reluctant to talk. Those who did spoke carefully. They didn't mock the case. They didn't dismiss it. They spoke as if acknowledging too much would reopen something better left closed. One investigator said the same sentence twice during an interview, almost word for word. As soon as we realized we couldn't explain it, we stopped trying. That admission matters. Because law enforcement is trained to pursue answers. But this case didn't offer answers. It offered implications. And implications are dangerous. There was no villain to blame. No suspect to arrest. No crime to reconstruct. Only two men who followed instructions and died waiting. That kind of story doesn't reassure the public. It unsettles them. The case was quietly categorized as a curiosity. Something strange. Something unfortunate. Something not worth reopening. But behind closed doors, it lingered. Because no official explanation could account for all the facts at once. Remove one detail, and it almost makes sense. But include all of them, and it collapses. The note. The timing. The masks. The lack of poison. The lack of fear. The synchronized watches. Every detail pointed to planning. And planning implies purpose. As the years passed, the files thinned. Documents went missing. Evidence was misplaced. Physical items were lost or destroyed. Not all at once. Slowly. Naturally. As if time itself was erasing the case. When asked why the case was never reopened, one official gave a blunt answer. There was nothing to gain. No justice to serve. No crime to prosecute. Only questions. And questions, he said, don't belong in reports. But the questions never stopped. Why did the men choose that hill? Why did they believe timing mattered? Why did they shield only their eyes? Why leave instructions, but no farewell? And perhaps the most disturbing question of all, why did authorities seem relieved when the case faded? Because if the men were wrong, the case is tragic. But if they were right, the implications are far worse. It means they believed something specific would happen, at a specific time, in a specific place. And belief like that doesn't come from nowhere. Even now, decades later, the lead mask's case refuses to settle. It isn't folklore. It isn't rumor. It's documented, verified, unexplained. And that's why it still matters. Because it challenges something fundamental. The belief that reality is always understandable after the fact. That death always leaves a trace. That truth eventually surfaces. This case doesn't offer closure. It offers discomfort. And for some investigators, that was enough reason to walk away. Long after the investigation faded, Morro do Vintém remained unchanged. The hill still rises above the city. The wind still moves through the grass the same way. The view still stretches out toward the horizon. But for those who know the story, it no longer feels empty. Nothing marks the exact place where the men died. No sign. No plaque. No warning. Just ground that once held two bodies, lying side by side, waiting. People who pass nearby rarely stop. Some don't know why they feel uneasy. Others do. They describe a strange heaviness, a sense that something unfinished still lingers there. Not fear, expectation. The men were buried quietly. No headlines followed. No final answers came. Their families were left with fragments. A notebook, a pair of crude metal masks, and a silence that never explained itself. They were never told what their sons or brothers were waiting for, only that it was unknown. Years later, when asked what he thought really happened, one investigator paused for a long time. Then he said something that never made it into any official report. They didn't die like people who were afraid, he said. They died like people who believed they were ready. That detail is what makes this case impossible to forget. Because fear leaves marks. Panic leaves traces. Belief doesn't. Belief leaves stillness. The men didn't flee. They didn't resist. They didn't try to save themselves. They followed instructions. They arrived on time. They prepared. And then they waited. Whatever they expected. Whether it was contact, exposure, revelation, or something no one has ever named, it didn't leave evidence behind. Or maybe it did. And we simply don't know how to recognize it. This is why the lead mask's case never truly ends. Because it doesn't offer a warning. It offers a question. What would make two ordinary men believe so completely that they would climb a hill, shield their eyes, swallow unknown capsules, and wait calmly for something they were convinced would happen? The world prefers explanations that feel safe. Delusion. Coincidence. Tragedy. But this case resists all three. It sits at the edge of what we can explain, and quietly asks us to look closer. And maybe that's why the files were allowed to fade. Because some stories don't threaten us with what happened. They threaten us with what might still be possible. Thank you for watching Dark Past. If this story stayed with you, take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who enjoys unsettling mysteries, and leave a comment with what you believe the men were waiting for. Subscribe for the next episode, because the next file we open was never meant to resurface. And once you hear it, you won't stop thinking about it.